Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Of Nature and Mind. I'm your host, Jacob.
I'm Jackson.
Thank you.
I'm Jackson.
Nice. We'll get better with that intro as things go on. Quick little thing. If you didn't see the introduction, I am a bartender, so we are going to be drinking on these episodes. For this episode, we're drinking just a simple mix of Di Serono and almond milk, and then we're going to start things off with this nice little shot of tequila. Aristocrat, sadly, because it's only what I had in the house. A little watermelon sour pucker and lime juice.
I'm making a straight face for the camera.
You're making a straight face?
If I was over there, I would have.
Alright. So, this episode, we're going to be talking about adventure, kind of defining it, motivations, benefits, why we believe people need to go on adventures, and what people can gain from going on adventures.
This is going to be fun.
Yes, it is.
It's going to be very fun.
Let's start off with you, Jackson. How would you define adventure? Like, to you personally, what is an adventure?
Doing something different, for one, and challenging yourself. Sort of towing the line of leaving your casual routine and environment and just putting your toe in the water kind of thing.
Okay. And, like, you say challenge, like, what kind of challenge? Does it specifically have to be physical challenge? Like, is it just learning something new?
I think both. Like, you can put an adventure in anything. A writer's adventure will be writing a book. Our adventure would be hiking, which is both mental and physical, so it's really about pushing yourself.
Yeah. I mean, before I get into, like, what my definition is, I was kind of, like, looking up, like, we throw around the word adventure a lot, and I just was wondering, what is the, like, literal definition of an adventure? Yeah. And just we have the internet, and quick little Google search. Literal definition of adventure is, like, any unusual and exciting, typically hazardous experience. Hazardous experience or activity.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Mine kind of followed I looked it up after I made what my, like, personal definition was. Like, for me, it was like any activity that is, like, new with a little bit of, like, risk involved, or done in the pursuit of knowledge.
Pursuit of knowledge?
Yeah. And when I say risk, just to clarify, I'm not talking, like, bodily harm. Like, it could be risk of, like, rejection of, like, trying to ask someone. I know you disagree because I do some pretty awful
asking a girl out to adventure.
Yeah,
it's risk of rejection.
It's like, if you've never asked a girl out before, asking a girl out for the first time is like a sort of adventure.
Your seventh grade adventure.
Yeah, your seventh grade adventure. Walking up to your crush. It was just really interesting. And, like, as I was looking at, like, different definitions of adventure, there was this one behaviorist I stumbled over. His name was John Levy. Wrote this book called The 2 a.m. Principle. It's a pretty good read. It wasn't too bad. It was about a few of his adventures and going out with friends and stuff, and it was really entertaining. But he classified an adventure as it has to have three things. It needs to be exciting and or remarkable. Possess adversity or risk, and bring about growth.
I really like the last two, yeah. What would you say the first one again? You had growth, and then you had risk and adversity. What was the other one?
It's exciting and remarkable.
Yeah, you could.
Which I think that's kind of broad.
I think that happens after the other two.
Mm-hmm.
That would come after, right? I mean, we talked about Utah first podcast. That was adversity, right?
There was a lot of
I felt more growth afterwards, and then looking back, it's exciting and remarkable, if that makes sense.
I just think I said, like, pursuit of knowledge or risk. I specifically said or because I don't think risk always has to be involved.
No,
because, like, I think trying, like, new foods can be adventurous.
It can,
but there's no risk involved with that. I guess you can technically say there is a risk that you're not going to enjoy the food, but
no, that doesn't.
I don't
count.
think that
doesn't count.
I don't think that's a real risk. Sure. Like, you defined adventure a little bit. What did you say? Like, some motivations on why you would go on an adventure, why potentially other people would go on adventures.
You know, I think life can, especially the past, at least maybe not this year, but the year before, life could get very stale or people stagnate. And I think those people, I don't know if it's correlated or causation, but I think people who stagnate tend to be the most unhappy. And I think you just need adventure. I mean, we're hunter and gatherer creatures. We're supposed to go outside and move. I think inevitably, if you do not have adventure, you'll be unhappy. And that doesn't mean you need to go be an earthy person from Colorado who loves to mountain bike all the time to be happy, but it just means, I don't know, it could just drive somewhere one day for some.
You need some variety in your life.
Yeah, you do.
It was funny. My dad used to tell me, this is how he would try and convince me to eat different foods growing up, because I was a picky eater growing up. Now I'll eat anything, but growing up I was a picky eater. He used to always say to me, Jacob, eat your damn vegetables. Variety is the spice of life.
That's interesting.
There's always a fun little quote that he used to yell at me to try and get me to eat different foods. But like thinking about it, it's really like, it kind of is like having a bunch of different experiences. It does spice up, metaphorically, your life.
I think though the adventure has to fit you, right? So there are some people who you would not classify adventurous at all.
Yeah.
However, they wouldn't necessarily say that. Because if you asked every single person their definition of adventure, it might be different. Mm-hmm. And you can't really disagree with someone on that. I mean, I guess you personally could, but
it boils down to difference in opinions.
I do think though, whatever someone's definition of adventure is, they should be doing it. Mm-hmm. You know, like let's say someone's adventure is, I don't know, it's not related to something physical. It's related to someone's an avid moviegoer, or someone likes to cook, and like you said, you're cooking something new, or you're going to the theater to see that is their adventure for them. Mm-hmm. And if they're not doing that, I don't think it bodes well for their mental health, but whatever that is.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because I know we talked a little bit beforehand and you were wondering what the hell I was talking about when I brought up something called sensation seeking. That fits perfectly into sensation seeking. How so? We'll go into it later. Okay. We'll go into it a bit later. Okay. Because I'm going to make you take a whole little test and everything. And it's going to be a fun time. I'm
frightened.
Preparing for this episode, I dove deep into some research and I found out about this thing called sensation seeking, and I'll explain all that later.
You know what I mean, though? People need to follow whatever their definition is.
Yeah, whatever they think whatever adventure means to someone, they probably need to be figuring out how to pursue that.
It's why people like movies, and it's why people like fiction. You know, life can be super mundane, and you want to be the hero. You want to be the main character of your own life, whatever that is to you. You kind of got to do that, or life might be a bit miserable for some people. You know.
I mean, like, motivations for just going on adventures can vary so widely, because like, one of the things that I read in my research before the episode was I read a study done by Eastern Carolina University in conjunction with the Adventure Travel and Trade Association. This was done in like 2017. They surveyed a bunch of people and basically found like the varying differences for why people would go specifically do adventure travel. So like traveling to new places. And like...
Still funny that you found a damn journal scholarly study on
studies on like everything. You just gotta look hard enough. It was like the number one thing that people were like trying to gain, like their motivation for going on these travel adventures was like transformation, trying to grow themselves in their perspective. There's also things like just learning, nature and discovery. Some were just for fun and thrills. And just a whole list of different reasons, just gaining unique experiences, meaningful stories.
That's like interesting, the transformation one, because I think you can see it in almost every genre of, I don't know, think of any market, right? You go on social media, you look at the fitness world, or you look at the diet world, or you look at someone trying to pick up a new skill. There's always an advertisement on how to transform yourself super quickly, how to become the best poker player in weeks, how to lose 50 pounds in 3 months. People have this desire to be their best selves, and they try to do it as quick as possible. So I'm not surprised.
And it was also interesting. I said this study was done in 2017, and it was like 76, like 3/4 of this study was done by interviewing people that were like 40 years or older, which I found was a little interesting because it like
that was the population. There was no one younger.
What was it? Only 5% were between the ages of 20 and 29, and 19% were between the ages of 30 and 30.
I wonder if you could spin that study into people with midlife crisis kind of thing.
That was actually part of it. Was they were wondering how many of these people were going through midlife crisis or quote unquote midlife crisis. It was actually a very low percentage. I don't have the exact number, but it was like less than 40%.
I have a suspicion that adventure could fix your midlife crisis. Not to toot our own horn kind of thing, but you could fill that hole.
The same study was also done in 2005, but very different results. Like I said number one for the study when it was done in 2017 was transformation. When they did this study in 2005, the number one thing was for thrills and excitement. Like doing risky stuff that would like get the adrenaline pumping. And in like 12 years, it like just completely changed to like that was almost on the bottom of the list for people.
That's interesting.
Like, why do you think people are just moving away? And keep in mind, this is an older population that is being surveyed, but like just a complete flip from like doing risky and adventurous stuff to just focusing more on changing perspectives and growing.
I don't know. I think it might also be down to just it's only 2 studies, and people are different, and you have to look at the amount of people studied, and I don't think anything's changed in 15 years. I mean, I see you. This Jacob over here before the podcast was like, "Yeah, I have a terrible fear of heights, but on the hike we went on a month ago, he's climbing this tower you're not supposed to climb." I think people still sensation seek. I think maybe they just missed. They forgot to study the people who do that.
You're using my word sensation seeking without even knowing what it means, Jeff Jackson.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Adrenaline junkies.
Yeah. But that being said, there's I'd say a lot of benefits to going on these adventures. Whatever it is for you. For my purpose, I'm going to be focusing on like the outdoors and like how it can benefit you.
Say your definition again.
My specific definition for adventure is any new experience that either contains like risk, excitement, and or pursuit of knowledge. And
when you say knowledge, what would that encompass?
That could be trying a new food to learn if I like it or not. That could be going to a different country to learn about the culture.
Gotcha.
Things like that. Like it could be like I said,
would it include learning things about yourself at all, or?
I think that's a byproduct of just gaining more knowledge.
Gotcha. So the benefits of that though.
And as far as benefits go, like what I personally have noticed is every time I've gone on one of our adventures, and for me and Jackson, most of our adventures involve going to a new place in the outdoors to go hiking and spend time in nature. It has always, collect my thoughts for a second, it has always given me some of my best memories I have had so far in my life. It has also pulled me out of holes that like I was emotionally in, and it just brought me back to reality and grounded me in ways that were very beneficial.
I wrote almost the same thing on why we need adventure. It was funny too, because when I wrote this, you would think that benefit would be the result of something like meditation or a good night's sleep or like reading a book with the candle on, like something super calming. Like, how could physically exerting yourself put you in this state of, as I wrote, for me personally, it brings me clarity and keeps me grounded, which in turn makes me happy. Which is sort of a similar thing, but it turns out hiking 6,000 feet or more, snowboarding or something, can bring you clarity.
It does. And I just also think like it always gives me new perspective whenever I explore a new place, even if it's not a new culture. As we mentioned in our first episode with Zion, when I was standing atop Observation Point, it just made me feel so small, and it made my problems feel smaller. It kind of just put me at ease, and it brought me into the moment. I wasn't worrying about anything in my past. I wasn't worrying about anything in the future. I was just in the moment. And I think that's where a lot of the positivity and benefits for me come from, is that it being in a new place just puts me in the moment, that I don't have time to worry about the past or the future.
You don't care to either.
I just don't. I'm just not.
Why would you, right? It doesn't make sense to.
Focused on the moment and what is happening around me.
You're making literally the thought I had was like, I want to move. I need to go somewhere that sort of enables that adventure everywhere.
You know what that is, Jackson?
I'm stuck in college.
No. You graduate. We get online jobs and we move into a bus.
Online jobs?
The U.S.
I can get an online job.
You can get an online job too. Just get an online job. It doesn't even have to be an online job. We can get a seasonal job.
That's a good idea.
We're
going off on a tangent.
I work as a bartender for a corporate company. I just look up another location across the U.S. and see if they'll transfer me over there. And I'll move across the U.S. and bartend.
Real quick before we go back to topic, I think we should shoot this podcast from Vegas when we go. We should get a hotel with a window.
Stop. They don't need to know about that yet.
Okay. It's a secret plan.
Jackson and I are potentially taking a trip to... The trip is to hike Angel's Landing in Zion in March, and we'll probably be spending...
I got bullets.
We'll probably be spending St. Patrick's Day in Las Vegas. So hopefully...
Or...
we both come back alive.
The deep wilderness of Alaska.
We'll see about
very
that
contrast.
one. Those plane tickets went up. I don't think that one's happening, going to be honest.
Next year. Anyways, more benefits of adventure.
Going away from my personal opinions and what I see as the benefits, at least for me, I found a nice study done in Japan by, I am hoping I do not butcher this name, Qing Li.
No, you got that. I think you got it.
The effects of forest trips on the human immune function. And it kept throwing out this word called forest bathing.
Forest bathing?
Before I tell you
in the trees.
What it means, what do you think forest bathing is supposed to mean, Jackson?
I don't know, but I just got this, like, you make banana tea. I just got this idea of, like, making a tea out of a tree. And that's what I got out of forest bathing.
Forest bathing is just a walk through the forest.
I was gonna guess.
It's
something
nothing
simple.
Super special, but I really like the term. I really like the term forest bathing. And essentially, it's presumed to help due to the essential oils the trees naturally leak, kind of like a form of aromatherapy, just natural.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really interesting because reading this, they found that people who did it was 90 or 45 minute walks through nature. They did it. They got their white blood cells, specifically something called neutral killer cells, which are NK cells. They're responsible for like killing tumors and virus infected cells. form a white blood cell.
Yeah.
They checked all the participants before they went out into nature. Then the next day, they do a 45-minute walk into nature. And then the third day, do another 45-minute walk into nature. And they tested them again to see how active these NK cells are and how many they have in their body at the time. And they found that, let's say their ratings were like, average was 18% activity level. On day 1 after the walk, it was 22%, and on day 2, it was 26%. And then the number of NK cells they have, which this is done in microliters, was like 440 on the day before any of their forest bathing, then to 560, and then to 630 on the third day. And
it's way higher.
It's much higher. Much higher. Like an 8% increase in activity and basically a 50% increase to the number of white blood cell counts. And this stayed raised like that high for 7 days, for an entire week after the hike. And then it only dropped by like 50% 30 days later.
I wonder what it's like for
to get back to normal.
The Appalachian Trail people who hike for like 3 months straight.
I'm assuming there's some cap.
Uncharted levels.
It is definitely
Unlimited
not
levels.
An exponential growth type of thing. But it was just really interesting to see that just doing simple walks through nature. This wasn't even like intensive hiking or anything. Just walking through the forest, walking through a natural setting would increase your just immunity. And then they, did a control group. They had people walk through an urban environment, walking through a city. No changes at all.
Oh, I was just going to ask, what is the walk? What if you did it on a treadmill? I guess that was the control group, or...
They sent them on walks through a city, and there was no changes at all. So I would assume a treadmill...
That's interesting.
...wouldn't do the same thing.
Of course. Just anything that's not the trees. I'm assuming, though, that's got to be an evolutionary thing, right?
Maybe.
Some form of self-medicine.
Further than the immunity, like, it also showed decreased stress.
Well, that makes sense, I feel like. Just going on a walk.
Yeah. But it had what was the exact... The amount of adrenaline, essentially, that they were seeing when they were testing people would drop when they were just doing simple walks through the nature setting. And it would drop even farther for females. It was actually like an extra 6% for female participants. They'd feel even more just like calm and at peace walking through nature settings. Whereas, again, in the urban settings, no change at all.
I want to look up if there's more, because that's pretty... I was listening to you say, and I was like, well, are you sure it's not just the exercise? But I'm pretty interesting to see if there's any follow-ups, because I don't know what it is, but I mean, it makes sense.
And I would say it's not the exercise simply because they do the same distance in just two different settings, and one has drastic changes compared to the other.
Yeah.
It was like, there's also just, again, another study about how basically we all have this thing in our brain, this part of our brain called the prefrontal.
We're fake scientists today.
It's just, and I kept all the
deep
websites,
dive.
so I'm going to plug all these into the description so people can go and look at these articles also.
Yeah.
But I also read another one about the hippocampus in our brain and how after the age of 50, it starts to shrink. But again, going on walks in nature,
such a shame,
actually increases it to grow on average by 2% a year, which
a year?
Yeah, it was a year.
Like you said, there's got to be a cap.
Sure, there's definitely a cap. As you get older, it's probably going to stop. It's going to stop growing, but it can still slow how much it decreases. And it'll just keep you more mentally aware as you get older.
That is a huge reason. This isn't even... So I have a few notes on the amazing positive effects of adventure, but a part of me thinks it's almost a necessity. And I'm going to plug physical adventure into this, or not even just mental stimulation, doing new things. Alzheimer's is a terribly scary thing, and just if you can, let's say genetically in your family you're going to get Alzheimer's. If you could slow it even 10 years by just like going on walks, doing new things, trying new things. I don't know if you have a family member with Alzheimer's, but my grandmother has it. And I can't picture a world where if she went on runs 3 times a week for the past 20 years, she'd be as bad as she is now. She might still get it, but like, as you said, 2% a year, like it can slow. It's pretty incredible if you think about it. The improvement it can give you over time. I know 2% doesn't sound, and you're just pulling up, but it's a pretty big difference by just, and that's just a scientific need for adventure, I guess. It's not necessarily
just benefits to help kind of like it can just help you lead a happier life.
I mean,
beyond the more personal reasons of like how I find it to be grounding and stuff. These are,
if people like to be couch potatoes, if that's their adventure, sure. I don't mean to offend anybody, but like long term, right? You can't do that. Yeah. You weren't born to do that. When humans first existed, there were not houses around. You had to go build your house. You had to go make your little hut. So,
I mean, shit, when we first existed, we just wandered around as nomads. It wasn't even really settling down until we figured out how to farm.
Shout out to my good friend Jack Kilkenny Smith, who taught me a lot of wisdom when he said, your life will change when you realize you can sleep anywhere. And he's not advocating to be homeless, but he is kind of advocating to be homeless. You can sleep anywhere. You don't have to sit around.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
And then I'd say like another benefit, and I think this one is real specific for me and Jackson at least, is like it's a chance to like deepen bonds with your friends that you already have or make new friends.
That's how we became friends.
Yeah, how we became friends because we went on a trip together, and that's how our friendship started. And it's just become a deeper friendship on every single trip. You go into these new experiences, these new places, you're trying these new things together, and it just helps you build connections with the people around you.
And now we're doing a podcast.
Now we are doing a podcast.
I wrote that on my notes about trying new things. I said sometimes things get stale. Hiking was something new for me, and look at me now, I'm doing a podcast about it.
Yeah.
Just strange how that can happen.
Then I think one of the biggest benefits, even beyond all the scientific stuff, is just like the change of perspective, the growth you can get out of like adventuring and going on new experiences and learning new things.
That's an interesting thing to talk about, because I could probably make a list of things how it's made me grow. But I think new perspectives has been more powerful for me. So if I look back at the April through June before the July Zion National Park trip, I don't think I was the happiest person. And when you go, it's like building a habit. When you go a few weeks of doing something, you get used to it. In a few months, and it becomes normal. If you go a couple months being unhappy, you might forget how unhappy you actually are, and you might forget not who you are in a sense, but you no longer are living with your best version of yourself, right? Because you're the unhappy version of you. You're the person you don't want to be. When I went on the Utah trip with you, or I go on any trip, and let's say on top observation point, and I come home, it grounds me so much. It brings me back to center, and I almost that new perspective is valuable, because that perspective is like, oh my God, I have not been living the way I should be. I need to adventure more. I need to challenge myself more because I deserve it. And it's just kind of a reminder to just treat yourself right. It's a powerful thing.
For me, the biggest change that comes to my mind is the Hawaii trip. and I was trying to learn a bit more about just the Hawaiian culture and things like that. And I have a family friend who lives on Honolulu. We went to the Big Island, we went to Hawaii, but I asked him a bit about the culture. And he was just telling me, like, it's a very kind of go with the flow. Nice. It's nothing, no one is in a rush. Everything is very relaxed, polite. Everyone is family.
We're going to move there.
Type of thing. And I kind of took that with me. Yeah. I'm very much, ever since that trip, I've been a lot more kind of go with the flow, and I haven't been as hard on myself as I was before the trip.
Sometimes you don't realize how hard you're going on yourself until...
Yeah. Like, specifically, before this trip, I was working 6 days a week.
I remember you telling me after Hawaii... Honestly, no, like, I forgot what we... The change of perspective thing with this is, I think, incredible for you. You went to Hawaii, what were you? You were sitting outside, because our Airbnb was incredible, and you had, like, a life-altering, like, moment. That's a pretty big change of perspective, all right?
Yeah. This when I mentioned earlier that, like, adventures have kind of pulled me out of a hole, it was specifically the Hawaii trip. That's a long conversation for that one.
That's got to be its own, like,
Hawaii
genre.
Has really changed my perspective in a lot of ways. And it kind of set me on this path of, like, before I knew I liked going to new places, Hawaii was just like, I need to go and explore new places now.
I don't know what I would do with my life if I didn't. Yeah. I think I'd get super... I don't know what I'd get. Ashamed of myself.
Ashamed that you're not exploring.
That's got to be its whole different section. Adventure pulling you out of a hole. Because I don't know, whenever I go on adventures, that's who I want to be. So when I'm not on an adventure, I'm in a state of being not like, I'm sitting on this couch right now. I'm not wealthy. I would go on vacations every week if I could, so I'm not mad about it. But when I'm in Hawaii or Utah or Maine or anywhere, that is my dream self, you know? So it kind of reminds you of, it's like listening to a motivational speaker. It gives you a reminder of what you want. And I guess it's not only a change of perspective, but it's a further emphasis. It's a great reminder that this is what you should be doing. And to be honest, I don't think there's anything in life that I wouldn't rather be doing than my version of whatever an adventure is. I think I would be miserable if I didn't do it.
And I think that's a good kind of segue into the next topic is, like, we keep saying, like, adventure, and we're talking about traveling. That is very personal to me and Jackson. Yeah. Not everyone likes to travel. Not everyone wants to do that.
I think they should.
And so, while I was reading, I found this topic. It's called sensation seeking.
Oh.
It was...
We're here.
Yes. It was written by this Canadian psychologist named Marvin Zuckerman. He created this whole sensational seeking scale, and then it was refined down into a basic sensation seeking scale, which I'm going to test Jackson on later.
Let's go.
But it essentially is it encompasses, like, the drive for new, exotic, and intense experiences. That is essentially what it kind of covers. And it was in Psychology Today. That's nice. 2 articles from them.
Nice.
It was like it's a trait that they define by the search for experiences, feelings that are varied, novel, complex, and intense, and possessing the readiness to take on physical, social, legal, and or financial risks for the sake of the experience.
That sounds just like you. The sake of the experience.
It's all part of the experience.
I'm gonna put that on your tombstone. Because you're dying before me, that's for sure. So
I'll
put it on there.
Experience, Jackson. But it goes into a lot of, like, why do people take risks? And, like, one of the reasons, like, it's a quest, a desire for adventure and for risk. Another reason is a love for, like, just varied and new experiences, or, like, it's just searching for that natural ability to be disinhibited, essentially to be free, not limited by like your thoughts and things like that.
Exposing my limited vocabulary.
And just like you're like how susceptible to boredom and things you are.
Yeah.
Essentially the words. So when I took this test, I scored pretty high. I will talk about my score later.
Okay.
I scored my roommate Christian. I love the man. He also gave me his permission to rag on him a little bit. He
Christian
specifically said, "You can use my score to talk about how much of a boring fuck I am." Quote unquote his words. It was like he scored very low. I love the man to death, but his ideal life, and again, there's nothing wrong with this. This is just his ideal life.
Simple man.
Is working a 9 to 5, having a family, retiring at 50 and dying.
Watching football
And having beers. That is his ideal life.
Washington Commanders.
Nothing wrong with that. Good for him that he actually knows what he wants from life and he's working towards it, honestly. That's just not my ideal. But as far as the sensation-seeking scale goes, he scored very low. I scored pretty high. So now I'm
taking the test?
Yeah, it's very simple.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you 8 questions, Jackson.
I'll put this over here.
And we're going to get your score.
Should I put this on the couch, not on the table?
Yeah, you can put it on the couch.
Okay. My bullets are safe.
Again, you just answer from 1 to 5. 1 being this doesn't sound like you at all. 3 being you're like in the middle, kind of sounds like you, kind of doesn't, or you're unsure. 5 being this sounds like you.
Okay.
I would like to explore strange places.
5. That means definitely, right?
Yes.
5, yeah. 5. Wait, question. What did Christian put for that?
Christian put 2.
What a loser!
Stop.
Christian, if you're watching this, you suck.
I will go through Christian.
You suck.
I'll answer Christian's scores since I have them with me as I go through
Okay.
these. I would like to take off on a trip with no pre-planned routes
5.
or timetables.
5. Christian's a loser. You scored low on this?
He put 1 for that.
What a psychopath.
3. I get restless when I spend too much time alone.
Like a 2.
2?
I like being alone.
Okay. Christian put a 3 for that. I prefer friends who are excitingly unpredictable.
I'm going to put... See, I would put 4, right? But there's a difference between like Jacob's unpredictability I like, but like someone who's a toxic bastard I don't want. So
excitingly unpredictable.
Excitingly, meaning I
those
enjoy
were the words it used. So it would
go with a 4 because I'm kind of a reserved person, so I want my friends to have more energy.
5. I like wild parties. Now, I want to clarify for you. Not managing them. You like partaking in them.
Oh, okay.
I want to make that clear because I had to make that clear for Christian as well.
I'll put a 4.
It's not like it's happening at your house and you have to manage it.
I'll put a 4. Shout-outs to concerts. Concerts are better than
Christian
parties.
put a 5 for that.
Nice.
Because his logic was, I'll just get really drunk and have a great time.
Yeah, if I'm not liable.
All right, 6. I would love to have new and exciting experiences, even if they are illegal.
I think I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't say 5.
I was gonna say. I was really wondering.
You know me, right? I'd be lying if I didn't put 5. I love you, Stevie Aoki.
I would like to try bungee jumping.
5.
Oh, Christian's was a 1 for the last question. Also, his was a 2 for bungee jumping. And last question: I would like to do frightening things.
5.
And the same way I kind of explained this to Christian as far as frightening things go. I do not like heights. They freak me out. I'm not mortified or like completely terrified of heights. But I would go bungee jumping. I would go skydiving. I would jump off a cliff into water and go or diving or whatever. It's like they do not freak me out enough to stop me, but it definitely frightens me.
I guess I have a limit though, right? Like I would have to be convinced to do Mount Everest. I'm not sure I would ever do K2.
That's fair.
So that's like, but that's a whole new level.
Right.
But when I say frightening, I totally skydive.
So, you had a score of 35. I had a score of 37. The max score is 40.
We're meant for each other.
Guess what Christian's score was, if you haven't seen it on my paper already?
16?
18. So, basically the way this chart then defines it is if you score 8 through 16, you probably stick with the familiar and the calming things in life. You don't go out.
That's
too
okay.
much.
That's okay.
16 to 28 is you enjoy some new experiences, but eschew from high stimulation. You kind of stay away from super high stimulation. 28 to 40, where Jackson and I land, you need a steady supply of novel and challenging activities and likely bore easily. I have learned that I get restless if I don't have a trip. If I have too many days between a trip somewhere, I get too restless.
Thing is, I think we've done so well at planning trips that there hasn't been a point where I've reached that. So I don't know.
For me, there was. That's why I drove overnight at 1 a.m. to Maine to go to Arcadia.
If I have nothing to do, which is not the case because I'm a good student and I have a job and I like doing well at those things, so that's always occupying my time. But if I have nothing to do, I'll play games or I'll hang out with you. So I'm trying to fill. What would bore you? Like those 4 things I listed, would you get restless just doing those things?
What were the 4 things? Same again?
I have school.
Mm-hmm.
I have work. If I'm doing nothing, I play video games. And if I can't do that, I'll come over here, hang out with friends. Pretty.
Yes, that would bore me at some point. I would get tired of that, and I would have to go and do something.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So, basically, there was 4 categories we went through. The first one was thrill and adventure. Basically, the quest for risk. You say you don't like risk, but you scored a 10 for that one, buddy.
It's the type of risk.
Fair enough. But the risk is still there. Risk and danger experience, especially. The second category was experience. And it's basically just looking for a variety of sensations, not without the need for risk or danger. The third, which is questions 5 and 6, is disinhibition, which is the ability to be unrestrained.
What did I get?
Kind of freedom. That one was 9 out of 10. And then boredom, or your susceptibility to boredom, and like the dislike of repetition, 10 out of 10.
So
now again,
my lowest score
was 6 for just looking for a variety of experiences.
I don't like trying. Well, that makes me seem. When it comes to some things, I really don't like new things.
But again, this is a very condensed version.
Yeah.
There is a larger version that I found that was 40 questions, but I couldn't find the answer key
to
rank myself or others. Essentially, that is what it was. It was really interesting because, like, the thrill and adventure-seeking side of it, it was like, it's what your classic when you think of, you mentioned earlier, adrenaline junkies.
Yes.
The thrill and adventure seeking is essentially adrenaline junkies. Emphasizes the enjoyment for moderately frightening activities. Stop pointing at me. Like, the quote from the article, the secret sauce for thrill and adventure seekers.
This guy over here.
A potential for danger.
Did you get a 10 on that one?
Yeah.
Wait, did I get a 10 on that one too?
Yes.
Well, I guess I'm a liar.
But again, this is the condensed version. This is the condensed version. It's just supposed to give you a general idea of where you fall.
Scored pretty high though, both of us. So.
Yeah. The second one being experience seeking is like just quest for new experiences that like challenge the mind and the senses. It is supposed to be new. That one is much more like knowledge focused, not necessarily as physical as thrill and adventure seekers.
Yeah.
And then disinhibition was like the ability to be spontaneous, the ability to react necessarily without your thoughts holding you back, to be in the moment type of thing. Like how alcohol lowers your inhibition, it's more like naturally wanting to have those lower inhibitions, not in such a negative sense, but like how say like going back to the 7th grade crush, you might get a little scared and have your heightened inhibitions prevent you from going to talk to her and ask her out for your little 7th grade dance. At that when I was younger. I was horrible at it.
One time I drew on my hand, "Will you go out with me?" And I went up to a girl and I went. She's like, "Why'd you write this on your hand?" And I was like, "Oh no," and I walked away. Didn't work out for me.
Damn.
Didn't work out for me.
And then the 4th was boredom susceptibility. And essentially, it's just how easily you get bored from your routine. Basically, your tolerance for the absence of external stimuli was what it said in the article.
Yeah. I think if you gave me the expanded version, I might like my routine more than you think.
Probably. I generally like my routine too. I just need to throw in a curveball every now and then.
I was going to say, yeah, maybe I wouldn't like my routine if I didn't have a vacation or something.
Fair.
Which is the curveball. The vacation is the curveball.
It's just this whole reading about the sensation seeking really helped me, which I wasn't planning on, but it really helped me understand myself a bit more. It's like put a lot of words to my personality. And then it led
just
me
confirmed all the suspicions we had about you.
It confirmed all your suspicions about me, pretty much. And it just led me down an entire other rabbit hole of like how people who score high on the sensation seeking react to fear differently than people who score lower.
You know, that might be interesting because I guess you'd have to ask, one, fear of what, to the level of, because it's a scale of what you're scared of, because we might score really high, but I'm more scared of stuff than you are.
Yes,
for sure.
We each have our own. Everyone has their own fears, but like I'm gonna go off what this article said, and I'm gonna relate back to one of my experiences. Okay. So like it basically said that high sensation seekers react differently to fear down to like a straight up neurological level.
Okay.
So like when you start to feel fear, let me put it like this. When you start to feel arousal, and when people say arousal, they always think like
I'm childish.
Turned on or like, but arousal as in the sense of heightened emotions.
Yeah.
You can kind of go one of two ways. You can go down the route of fear or the route of flow. Essentially, flow is kind of like being in the moment. Yeah. And fear, when you usually have fear, it causes your body to start producing a bunch of cortisol, which is like the hormone that triggers fight, flight, or freeze.
Yes.
Whereas in high sensation seekers, you're much more likely to be calm in situations. You'll go down the route of flow, and your body will actually start producing dopamine instead of cortisol.
That's crazy.
And
dopamine's the stuff you like.
Yes.
So you're saying that's interesting. Oh wow.
And so I think back to our most recent hike that you hate me for, where I started climbing this tower, and I was afraid at first, but when I started doing it, I was like, holy shit, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I was like super focused. I was in the moment, but I stopped being afraid of the heights. I was like, this is great. I am happy. And it was just so, like, such a good feeling.
It was a pretty visible difference between your, I was pretty stressed. So I'm definitely the cortisol one.
You were stressed for me, though. I think it would have been different.
Maybe if I was doing it.
Tried it. It goes back to that quote we talked about from Will Smith.
Maybe.
Remember that quote from Will Smith we talked about? The, what did he say? The height of maximum,
I know the video you're talking about.
What is it? Can you find the quote?
Yes.
Find the quote while I continue.
Everyone's seen it. Will Smith's doing like motivational speaking, skydiving.
Don't play the video, just find the quote. Basically, it was just really interesting to find out that these people who like adventure and just...
You realize that the point of maximum danger is the point of minimum fear. That's the quote. That's what it says.
Yes, and that's basically how I like.
I
wasn't doing wasn't super risky. I was just climbing up something like you climb up a tree.
Another thing it says, on the other side of your maximum fear are all of the best things in life. Yeah. Essentially, you hit a point, and after that point, it's just. I mean, you could probably speak better on it, but.
It was just like, it's like what I was doing wasn't super dangerous, but like I get freaked out by heights, and so as I was climbing up this structure, I was freaked out at first, but as I kept going, I was like, I was getting amped up, and I was getting really excited and happy about it. Instead of, I stopped being afraid.
He says, fear is not real. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. Thank you, Will Smith. Inspirational.
And as we come like down to the close of this episode, it's like, why does this all really matter about adventure and stuff? And really, it's kind of up to the individual whether anything we talked about today matters to them or not.
I think everyone should do it. At least me personally.
I think everyone should definitely try new experiences, whether, again, something as small as going to a new coffee shop, trying a new food. It doesn't have to be something as grand as going to a different country or backpacking. Like, that's not even something we've done yet, but like we know there's people that'll just go to a country, then just walk across the country. It's like, those are extreme examples, but like you can have like little micro adventures every day, every week.
A common theme we've brought up a bunch. That is one of the benefits of adventure, is being grounded or sort of living in that moment. And I think that's when every human being's the most happy.
Is when they're living in the moment. They're not worrying about they're not stressed out about the future or worrying about the past.
I think that's what adventure creates. And also I think, especially when you talk about mental health being on the rise and anxiety levels, and there's a few theories about how we're an ancient being in modern times, that our fight or flight systems are applying to things that shouldn't. Mm-hmm. Like, let's say you have some first world problem and you get super stressed about that, and you're getting a life or death reaction. Not exactly, but you know what I mean. You're getting a super stressful reaction that you probably shouldn't be getting because it's not really meant for that. When you go on these adventures and you're living in the moment, it brings you back to that center, which you really should aim to be all of the time, because you don't want to have that anxiety that can come from, at least for me, I get anxiety when I do nothing. I get anxiety throughout the day, but whenever I'm living that adventure I want to be doing, if that is literally trying to be a better student, if that is trying to improve who I am in the gym when it comes to honing skills, I'm focused, I'm driven, I'm on my own journey per se, because that's what life is. You're on a journey. The times to reflect and the times to look in the future is at the dinner table. It's before bed. Your bulk of the day, in theory, should be that adventure where you're just purely living. You're in that state of flow. Because one thing I tell myself is, which at least helps me de-stress, is thinking about something too much isn't going to make it any better or go away. Block out a time to think about it. I can spend 10 hours going on a hike. I can worry about my homework before bed. I can worry about it sometime. But when you adventure, you're not... It all dissipates.
You're focusing on the
You're
moment.
Focused, yeah. And I think if someone doesn't want to live in the moment, more power to you. But I think most people do. I think everyone does. Because that's what makes you happy.
Yeah, I think that's a good note to end on. So, thank you all for tuning in to Of Nature and Mind. You can find us Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all the same name, Of Nature and Mind. And we hope you all have a good day.
Adios.
Or night, whatever time you're watching this.
Adios, adios, adios.